My name is Sonny. I'm the COO at ABC Florida East Coast.
And my name is Peter Dyga. I'm the President and CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors, Florida East Coast Chapter.
This is The Obvious Podcast, episode 27. The Obvious Podcast is a production of ABC Florida East Coast. Unless otherwise stated, all content reflects the opinions of the guests and the hosts, which is us.
And if you like The Obvious Podcast, you can subscribe on all the major podcast platforms or watch the audio-visual version on YouTube. You can also follow The Obvious Podcast on Instagram, X, and Truth Social. You can always reach out to us via email at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. Links to all the social media feeds are in this episode's show notes. And if you want to help others find the podcast, please leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. I want to mention this little document in front of me called the 2024 Year in Success. You all as members should have all received a mailed copy of this to you, but if you'd like us to mail you one because you didn't get it or would like a digital version, all you need to do is email us, and that email address is theobvious@abceastflorida.com. So just email us, tell us you'd like a copy, we'll send you a digital copy or pop another copy in the mail to you. So it is a kind of a summary of 2024 and the many successes that we experienced here at the Florida East Coast Chapter. It's an exceptional document, so I hope you enjoy it.
And if you are affiliated in any way with the organization, you will have a good time looking for your picture.
That's right.
There's a lot of pictures in there.
Yeah.
So, Peter,
what are we talking about this week, Sonny?
I feel like
never a shortage of things.
Never a shortage of things to talk about. But I feel like I'm living in a world where the Democrats want war and the Republicans are the peaceniks.
It is a little.
Right?
It's like Orwellian.
It's Orwellian.
It really is crazy. It's. I never thought, that they'd be representing and defending the billionaires, and we're defending and trying to represent the working class, and and to your point of war and peace. Peace. They're defending the military-industrial complex, and we're the right more or less is saying, whoa, they're making too many profits off of these wars all around the world. It's insane.
It is absolutely insane. And Republicans have been known for so long as that famous speech.
By the way, unfairly, I think. We've kind of framed this. I don't know that I'm a lifelong Republican for the most part. I don't know if I've ever told this story before, but I kind of flirted with libertarianism, when I was young and in college. And, I kind of came to the conclusion that, the Democrats were on one extreme, where a government solution to everything, and the libertarians were on the other extreme, which is government was no solution to anything. And I'm like, well, no, I kind of believe there are some things that it makes sense for the government to do and do better. And that's kind of why I wound up, and again, I hate, the people that I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, I'm an independent. It's like, you think you're the only person that thinks independently? I mean, I consider myself, and you probably do too, very independent thinkers. It just so happens that on 99% of the issues, when I think independently and assess the situation, I fall down in line where the Republican Party often is. So, and I just think it's been unfair in the past to even kind of
I'm going to say this, though. My problem with the Republican Party historically has been that they might be right on the issues, but they just don't do a damn thing about it.
For sure.
Right?
Agree.
And
there are splits, by the way. There are some even today that are more in defense of some of the issues that, but those
sort of the Bush Republicans, what they call the country club Republicans.
Country club and
the populists of the Trump
country club Republicans and the limousine liberals kind of align on a lot of things. So.
They do, because they both make money the same way, right? They leverage their, we had an episode about this where I believe you called it crony capitalism, right? And they all know they've all figured out how to make money on that.
And I think those alignments have been happening for a while, but they really just came to a head. It came to a head, I think, in this last election, and the leader that we have in particular. So, well, we wanted to talk today about something a little even more specific, So
I've had some conversations about what happened in the Oval Office with Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine, and President Trump and Vice President Vance, and the now famous tiff that they got into. And a lot of people have, well, not a lot of people, but a few people have reached out to me looking for context and trying to understand what kind of started it all and because, you obviously are not getting you're not getting the texture from the media, right? You're getting this broad swath of
Putin bad.
Putin bad,
Zelensky good.
You know, Trump's Putin's puppet, and that's most of the left.
Never mind the fact that now apparently we can't even agree on how much aid we've sent them. I mean, how insane! We don't
Those
know.
numbers keep changing.
Do we not know?
Right.
You know, I think he's even said, well, it was supposedly this number, but we only received this. I mean, what the hell is going on there? And if that's not enough to make you second guess or start to question what's going on here, there's plenty of other things to
I've heard the number 200 billion from Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State. I've heard the number 375 billion. I've read the number 375 billion.
But isn't it in the congressional record somewhere? I mean, can't we go back and say this much was approved then, and this much then, and this much then, and do simple math?
That's a great point. But then Zelensky has said publicly that they have only received 77 billion. And so, you know, hopefully Doge can figure this out, because it's way above my pay grade to,
it's amazing.
You know.
But we can't even agree on that. I mean, Doge trying to weed out corruption and waste and fraud in our government. We've got, again, one half of the political spectrum, you know, that somehow, I love this. Somebody had said, you know, Trump, the magic of what he's doing, and he's picking 90-10 issues. Somebody said 80-20, but anywhere between 80-20, 90-10 issues. And he's picking the 90% side every time. And the Democrats feel compelled because of, I think, their hatred of the man or the dislike of the man to just take they ought to just be quiet. I mean, if they don't want to like get on the side of what he's promoting, just be quiet. But they're going beyond that. They're defending the 10% issue or the 20% issue. You know, like somehow, oh, well, no, waste, fraud, and abuse has just got to continue in the government. You know, we can't put an end to that.
I saw this yesterday, a liberal friend post that America was now run by two parties, and this is how he phrased it. One, and I hope he's watching, because I'm going to tell you how wrong he is. One side is run by people that want to run efficient government, and one side is run by people who want to burn the whole thing down. That's how he phrased it. Burn the whole thing down. And, you know,
the Democrats want to burn it all down? Because the only side that wants to run efficient government is the Doge and the president.
But they see themselves as sort of purveyors of sanity. And it's just, but in their definition of sanity is keeping it as is, keeping the government systems as is. And this idea, you can no longer even debate that the government is inefficient. Like, you can't, I mean, that used to be fact. Nobody debated you on that.
Right.
Nobody argued that the government was efficient.
Well, nobody would argue it so long as nobody was doing anything about it.
Correct.
You know, and that's, I think I've mentioned in a previous podcast, for my whole political life, adulthood, you know, people would be like, there's not a hill beans of difference between Republicans and Democrats. When the Republicans get in office, they say they're going to cut spending and waste, and they don't. You know, and the Democrats feel that. And there was some truth to that in the past. But right now, today, nobody can say that. But yet now they're fighting it.
Yeah.
You know, the people that would tell you there's not a hill of beans worth of difference are the ones that actually are fighting any kind of progress. So.
I read a meme somebody posted, if Trump was to, and I'm going to try and say it exactly how I read it, if Trump was to rescue a child drowning in the ocean, the Democrats would say he's trying to starve the sharks.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a lot of memes.
There's a lot of versions of that flying around. And anyway, but that's not what I wanted to talk to you about today. I wanted to talk to you about the whole Zelensky.
Saying we spent 10 minutes just kind of leading up to what we want to talk about.
Leading up to our main subject.
So, all right.
The Zelensky, Trump, Vance tiff, and I obviously, you know, find the media reprehensible in how it sort of
absolutely
tells you the story.
Well, the media, and let's just say pretty much everybody who's commented on this, I guarantee you, and I'm going to look in the camera and say, if you have not watched the full 45 minutes of that Oval Office press conference, I guess is, you know, what it in essence was, instead of just the clip, like the 5-minute clip that Fox broke into and the other, you know, but the whole thing is out there, and it really is necessary.
It's on YouTube.
To truly understand the context of what was going on there. Zelensky was coming to sign a mineral rights deal, which in the president's, who is the leader of this negotiation, he is the elected president of the United States. His point was that was security, because once you have U.S. companies vested in your country with a financial interest, you now have security, and everybody thought we were on the same page and he was coming over to sign it, right? But
we
something
talked about
happened.
that. We talked about that episode in one of our episodes where we talked about Milton Friedman's love of capitalism, in which he kind of talks about, I don't have to like you, right? In order to do business with you. If I like your product and I like your terms and your price, I'll do business with you.
Sure.
And the whole idea behind this deal is that to sort of link the U.S. and Ukraine in a profound way, economically,
financially,
that it inherently creates security. Because if the U.S. is doing massive amounts of business in Ukraine,
something brilliant, which
Yeah.
if you had half a cent of logic or fairness, you would be like, that's spectacular.
Yeah.
We got a leader that actually is making progress in this and wanting to actually bring peace, the end of obstruction of cities and whole families and millions of soldiers and civilians, right?
all right, right,
And actually get all sides negotiating. If you're going to broker some kind of a peace deal or a ceasefire, you're not making any kind of a statement about how it's going to be easy or difficult or the parties are trustworthy. Quite frankly, I don't think any of them are.
yeah. But the
But you
U.S.
got to
is,
bring them to the table.
but the U.S. is negotiating almost on your behalf with equity in the deal, right?
Yeah.
If this deal gets signed, then the U.S. is there saying, hey, we have an economic interest in this country, so let's get this peace deal done and move on and start developing and rebuilding, basically a new Marshall Plan for Ukraine. What I really enjoyed has been listening to Marco Rubio's version of events, and Marco has not hesitated in giving you some background information on this topic and a lot of context. I know he was on MSN. He was on CBS News, and he was also on ABC News. Probably my least favorite Clinton operative, George Stephanopoulos, interviewing him. And they were talking about just sort of the recent history on this issue. And one of the things Marco talked about was the fact that the mineral deal was agreed to, was negotiated, and Zelenskyy said, I need some time to get my legislature to approve it. The U.S. said, fine. But while he's saying this privately, he's saying publicly he's opposed to the deal. And that really upset the president, that really upset Marco and Vanc. So there's some subtext that's kind of already happened, right, between things that are said privately and publicly that going into this meeting. And again, this is sort of, and I'm simplifying what Rubio has said because he's extremely articulate in this. The idea that a security guarantee is required before anything can get done is an impossibility because you will not get anybody on the to the table. And so he talks about, and you can see this on the, and we'll throw up a link so you can see it on the ABC News interview as well for the Marco Rubio interview. And he talks about the fact that you have to bring, this is to your point, you have to bring the parties to the table. Like, how are you going to do that if you keep relitigating that it was Putin who invaded Ukraine? Nobody disagrees with that. Nobody's unaware of that fact. Like, it's a well-known fact that he invaded Ukraine, that he has attacked civilians, that he has done some terrible things to that country. But then, if you want that to stop, you want that to end, how do you bring him to the table, right? And making him be the bad guy and constantly criticizing him is not going to do the trick, because you have to bring him to the table and you have to get this fighting to stop. And I think, again, this is sort of
back to our early part of the conversation about the left is right and the right is left and black is white and white is black and all that stuff. I mean, we were talking before we started recording. I asked you a question. Can you recall sometimes in history where the left didn't really care much at all about one country invading the other?
Yeah.
Come up with a whole arm of lengths of examples. The most noteworthy is, I don't know, they defended probably North Vietnam, invading South Vietnam.
Did it?
There are many, many examples. It's just for some reason this one, and I think they see it as some kind of a political, I think.
It is. It's political because I think it's related to Trump's first term and then the whole Russia thing and Russiagate and, Right. I mean, they were obsessed with Russia back then, and I think this is just to them a continuation of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they're so hung up on it.
Yeah.
You know, and look, Zelenskyy is charming, and Zelenskyy is good looking. He's an actor. He knows what he's doing, and so this idea that you're going to relitigate, hey, who's really responsible for this war? Everybody knows who's responsible for the war.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who started it. Everybody knows who invaded who.
Sure.
And so then the issue really becomes, how do you stop it? And that seems to be, there seems to be no interest in that, even from the Europeans, who everything they gave to Ukraine was given to was guaranteed as a loan. Like, it wasn't even just like, you know, America's like, here, take
They
the
were
money.
smarter.
They were smarter, right? And I get it. Like, they don't have soldiers, they don't have a defense budget. They rely on the U.S. But for them to now, you know, huff and puff, and I'm watching the Prime Minister of England, you know, or the Prime Minister of the UK, hugging Zelenskyy and saying, we're working on a peace framework. And you would think that would be the end of the sentence. And he's like, and then we're going to present it to the Americans. So you can have all the dog and pony show. You still need the Americans to get anything done.
Sure. And you're going to need the Soviet Union or Russia as well, you know, to get anything done.
Of course, they need to come to the table.
Yeah, if they're not bringing them to the table, you're not going to get a ceasefire and a peace deal. So,
and we get it. They're not the best people in the world. And Marco makes the point in this interview: nobody's going to be giving Putin a Nobel Peace Prize.
Correct.
You know, he's not going to be the Humanitarian of the Year award. He's not going to win any of that. And everybody understands that. But the issue is, how do you get it to stop?
Yeah. There's a lot more complexities to this, though, as there usually are, right, to wars. You know, the whole involvement and threat of Ukraine becoming part of NATO, you know, was a big, and how that was manipulated by previous administrations. I'm fond of posting a question on my social media feeds, which is, if Mexico were to threaten to become part of some Chinese military pact, how would you expect the United States to respond?
Yeah. I mean, the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? Like the Russians.
Sure.
Russians are like, we're going to put some missiles in Cuba. And look, I mean, we almost went to nuclear war over that. And so
the fact that, you know, at its core, this whole invasion and issue was, you know, the threat of them becoming, you know, part of the NATO alliance was an important, very important issue to Putin and the Soviets. The Russians, I guess they're not the Soviets anymore, right? I'm really dating myself. So,
I mean, you could argue Bill Clinton made them give up their nuclear weapons in the 90s and said, we'll defend you, right? I mean, so they, from what I read, they at some point had the third or the fourth largest arsenal of nuclear weapons. It was Ukraine. And they gave it all up. And Bill Clinton was like, we'll be there. And, you know, but again, Putin didn't invade anybody during Trump's time. He did during Obama and Biden. So that tells you something as well. So, well, there's a lot to talk about, but we're running out of time. So we hope you've enjoyed this little glimpse into what's been in the news lately and found it interesting. Thank you for listening and for honoring us with your time. We look forward to sharing another episode with you next week.
And for comments, send us an email, please, at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. And don't forget, if you want another copy or a digital version of our 2024 Year in Success, you can email us at theobvious@abceastflorida.com.
Have a great day.
Next time.